Okay. Hello, hello. Welcome. Welcome, Julia. Welcome to whoever decides they're going to jump onto this live and watch along. I just want to say I'm super excited to have Julia Tallering here. She is a expert Western astrologer and certified numerologist. And she is here to share with us some insights onto this year, what's going on astrologically, all the things. And so, Julia, thank you for taking the time to be here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me
Yeah,
also.
yeah. So I'm curious, before we jump into the numerology and astrology, what how did your journey began towards, you know, astrology and numerology? I mean, that's common, right? I mean, there's people that are like, "Oh, yeah, I'm curious about astrology and whatever," but I feel like there's very few people who are like, "I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna devour it," and, so I'm curious, how did that evolve for you?
Sure. So there was a friend that I got really, really close with, and she kind of got me into it, but like she started the journey for me. But then I really devoured it more when I was living in Massachusetts. And I devoured it even more in California. So the reason that I went into it so much is because I always felt different. I always felt like I was not the same as everybody else. I also realized that I'm highly intuitive. So, a big part of also what got me into it is that I'm highly sensitive. So, I would always be researching online, why do I feel this way? Why am I so like sensitive about everything? Why do I feel different? All of that. So that's a lot of what got me into it because I would be researching stuff all the time. I would be on YouTube a lot, looking at everything. And then after that, um, everything in my life kind of broke down. And what I mean by that is I had a host of medical stuff happen. I also realized I didn't want to be in school anymore for what I was doing, which I was a psychology counseling major.
Mhm.
And I still enjoy helping others. It's not that I don't. It's actually a huge part of what I like doing now, with my astrology stuff that I do. But I like doing it in a different way. I don't want to do the counseling anymore with like therapy. So
Mhm.
I decided to do something different. So that's a lot of what got me into it. And I also realized that I don't like having rules and structures, but I didn't want to feel so confined to have a license and
Mm,
everything like that. I didn't want to feel like I have to follow the rules with licensing all the time. I felt
mhm.
like I wanted to make my own rules. And like I said, it's important to follow structure and all that. Absolutely. There is a time and place for it and you need that.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to do it to the point of like having a license for myself either. So that's a lot of what got me into it because I knew I was different and
Mm.
I also knew I'm highly intuitive also.
Wow, interesting. So, would you say that getting into the astrology and so what came first, astrology or numerology, or did they both happen at the same time?
Um, I feel like the numerology part happened first, and I'll
Uh-huh.
say why. The numerology part happened because I think that I just like went on a website that like told me about how the months and years would go because I always had surprises in my life about, different things happen and I'm like, no, I like why is this happening? And so I wanted a way to see okay, what's going to happen coming up? What is the energy coming up so that I can be more prepared for it? And that's kind of what I try to do like for clients to help them be more prepared so they don't have to like face a bunch of craziness basically like I had to. So I think I ordered a numerology report and I read it and I'm like, okay, half of this is accurate for me but the other half I don't see it.
Mhm.
And I was like, so then I got more into it and then I started looking at astrology stuff which came actually around the pandemic. That's when I got really into it and that's when I started doing them. And I'm like, wow. And then I read mine, read other people's. It was really, really interesting.
Huh. And so I'm curious when people come to you for numerology and astrology, like what's the most common question? Like what are they looking for?
Um, okay, so some of them are not sure what to do about a situation. I've had a few people, because I also did readings as well. So
Yeah.
I've had a few people that were like, okay, what do I do with this situation? What do I do with this situation? And something that I always noticed, which was so interesting, is that whenever I did like some type of, either a report or like a natal chart session, or a reading, there would always be something that I needed to learn as well as that person in that session. So it
Oh,
wasn't just about them, it was about me, but it was something that I felt like I was supposed to tell them based on my own experience. So I was bringing my own experience into it to help guide them towards how to deal with something. It was so interesting.
wow. That is really interesting. And so with astrology and a numerology, would you say it just helps you to see what's coming and maybe tune in? I mean, you said something in the beginning that I can totally relate with, which is, also being highly sensitive and empathic. And I've really have had to spend, I feel like my whole life, you know, building that sense of like having boundaries and not taking it all in. But, I feel like I still get affected by the mass consciousness, like what's happening at the larger global level. Like I feel like I don't watch the news, but yet, any of course it's impossible to have things end up in your, whether a friend texts you something or whatever, right? And you end up getting like blasted and you're like, oh, this is why I'm feeling exhausted because this part of the world is going crazy or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, so how does so I guess this is where we'll go into the astrology bit because would you say that what's happening in the world right now can be seen in the astrology?
I feel like with how I feel like so everybody's made differently, and you can see that based on someone's chart. So I feel like we react to the world based on how we're built astrologically. That's kind of how I see that. And I feel like since I'm a highly sensitive person, I feel like highly sensitive people have a lot that they take on because they take on the energy of other people and they also don't know how to release it if they aren't taught how to release it.
Right.
So they carry it around because I did this and I still do it, but I also have strategies on how to release it so I'm not extremely exhausted every week.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're reacting to their environment based on how they're built, based on, how they function. And I find it interesting because whenever like I talk to people and I ask them what they are, I'm like, that's why I can understand why you're acting like this now. It just makes so much sense.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question a little bit about that.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, it does make sense. So regardless of what's happening in the world, each person's gonna have their a different response, different reaction.
Hmm.
Whereas, I could see where for some people the reaction might be, "I'm just wanna crawl in a hole," and another person might just be like, "I wanna get in there and, like, whatever,
Yeah.
get in
Yeah,
the whole drama of it," or whatever the response might be. Um,
exactly.
so, what do you see, astrologically or that's a word,
No.
numerologically for this year?
Okay. So first of all, we're still kind of in eclipse season. So there's a lot of different things happening right now.
How can
We,
I ask you, how long does the eclipse season last? This
so the
eclipse
energy of it
Yeah,
is 6 months.
okay. 6 months.
So yes, you could feel that energy for 6 months. So when people say we're in eclipse season, yes, there's an eclipse season. It's usually like 2 months, but the energy of it, you feel that for half the year. Sometimes it could be 2 years, but usually it's 6 months. And usually, this is my guidance around eclipses. And we
Okay.
just had one in Aries. So usually with eclipses, and this is what I have said to so many different people already, whenever we have an eclipse, it's always about learning, like going closer, evolving towards your north node. And your north node can be found in your natal chart if you go to your north node on the bottom, and you also have your north node sign. So you are always evolving towards that, but the eclipse brings you closer to it. So now, with that being said, it's important to also be open to the fact that doors might close during that time period and doors might open. And I'm highly intuitive, so I can help with, figuring out what doors might be good for you. But I always say, follow your intuition. If you feel like a door is meant for you, go through it. If you feel like it's not, then don't. But if doors are closing around this time or did, keep it closed because there's a reason it didn't open. And I always say it's a redirection. So that's always really important. And then it's also important to look at if it's a new moon eclipse, a full moon eclipse, stuff like that, and what sign it's in. So the most recent sign that it was in was Aries. And Aries is a fire sign, and it really likes to go, like it likes to take action. It's a very action-oriented sign. So if you feel very restless around this time, feeling like you need to get a lot of stuff done, yes, exactly. That is why, because it's Aries energy. It's going to push you to get a lot of stuff done, and it's going to feel like not out of control, but it's going to feel like you have to move, and you have to move quickly.
Like an imperative. It's an imperative.
Yes, absolutely. So it's going to feel like that. The good news is, though, that we did just get out of Mercury retrograde. That's the good news.
Yes.
I can see the breath of relief on your face.
I'm trying to be loving towards Mercury retrogrades. Like, I understand that it's not all negative. It's like, oh, it's a time to reflect, right?
Yes.
It's a time to look back and just like, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. People tend to look at it as it's a bad thing because they're like, I can't do anything. And I'm like, no, you actually can. You can do everything that you want to do. You just can't, how do I put this? You can do what you want to do, but you shouldn't put your ideas out to the world yet, because honestly, you're just going to have to take them back and review it anyway. So that's the only thing you can't do, but it's okay to take time and review and reflect, because honestly, you might come up with new stuff that's even better than what you had before. So that's how I like to look at it.
Yeah. So taking the time. Wow. So that's interesting. Yeah. So the solar eclipse, man, I can feel that. Like, this just like, it's time. That's what it feels like to me. It's like, just keep moving. Like, whatever you're doing, just keep moving. And so before we got on the slide, you said that this year is going to be a lot about business. Yes?
Yeah. All about business.
Tell me about that, because I'm like, ding. Tell me.
Okay. So as a collective, we're in the energy of an 8. So what that means is you're going to feel a lot of energy around making sure that you have success around business. And I'm not guaranteeing you will. What I am saying is that, you're going to feel like you want to make sure that you have what you need to function well as a business. So if you need to hire people to do a certain thing for you, like, I don't know, if you need to hire somebody to be, I guess, maybe an accountant for you, something like that. I'm just using a random example, because maybe you need to get your finances in order. I don't know, something like that. Then you're going to put that in place. Let's say you need to, you need to have certain things going correctly. Then you're going to want to make sure that all of that is in place. You're going to want to make sure that you have what you need to ensure that people know who you are, stuff like that. Another thing that comes up during this time period is making sure you have an LLC or a PCC, whichever one is good for you, whichever one matches. You're going to want to make sure that you have something like that protects you. So I say that because you want to make sure that you have stuff set up. And this
Mm.
energy this year is going to push you more to do that. And, it's going to push you more to feel like you're in control of business matters. So it's very business like. So if people want to do like more, I guess more like lives and stuff like that, or more, so, stuff like where they're showing people who they are with their business.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm tailoring this conversation to only.
Yeah.
They will feel the need to do that so that people know what their business is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I mean for like, showing people who you are with your business.
Yeah. It feels very like the way you describe it, like making sure that you have your foundations laid out. Like it feels
Yes.
very grounded. This isn't the time to, well, it's not the time to be continuously in the dreaming phase, right? Like
No.
being like,
Yeah.
okay, let's say someone already has a business. Like, I get it. What you said totally makes sense. Like, okay, create those structures, create the organization. Like when you wake up in the morning, what are you doing? Like how you structure your day? What are all the systems? Making sure it's you've got your eye on everything that you need to make it a successful business. But then alternatively, let's say it's somebody that doesn't have a business, but they have an idea, like
Mm-hmm.
had this idea that they want to build a business. Would you say that this is the year then to do it?
Yeah. This is the year to put in that hard work to do it. It's also going to be important for like, since you're just starting out, keeping the other sources of income you have is also important. Whenever I have clients that came to me, I always say keep what you have right now. Keep your income sources, don't let them go because you need the money, but work on this on the side. So it's also very important to make sure that you do have money coming in, but you're also focused on what it will take for you to create a foundation where you can be successful with wealth, because 8 is all about wealth, financial success, building something that can last a long time. It's really important to think of it that way. It kind of reminds me of the 4, but the 4 is all about having business structure and some stuff like that. So with the 8, it's more about business success. But we all know that, and if you've been through your Saturn return, you know this, that anything worthwhile that you work on, that you want to create, takes a lot of time and energy to put into it, and it doesn't happen overnight. So you have
Mhm.
to have, a lot of patience with it and a lot of energy that you put into something. And you have to make sure that, it works well for you too. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where the energy is too.
Yeah. Interesting. So, have you looked into, I mean, I can't believe we're almost halfway through this year, to be
I know.
honest. I'm
I know.
like, June is
I,
next month. What? Um, so what have you looked into next year, 2025?
so I didn't look into that year yet.
Mhm.
I normally look into it like around November-ish,
I see.
but I will say for anybody who has like their birthday coming up, it's always a good idea to look at it like a month or 2 ahead of time just to kind of see what your next year is looking like too. So
Gotcha.
that's
Okay.
important. I always emphasize that because I'm a big, big, big person with making sure that you use your energy efficiently. I don't see a point at all to want to do what you want to do and then the energy doesn't support it and then you're literally swimming upstream. It doesn't make sense to me. So,
Yeah. Wow. Fascinating. So, um, Western astrology, I
mhm.
gotta ask this question. Can you talk about, because I'm curious, like, can you talk about the Venus cycle? I'm just curious. What does Venus stand for?
So Venus is all about basically it's about relationships, but
Sorry, I'm dinging.
that's okay.
I always
That's
forget to turn on my focus. Do not disturb. Okay.
okay. That's
All
okay.
right. So
So
relationships. Yeah.
Yes, it's all about Venus likes love, money, relationships, and stuff like that. So when you have Venus and everything, it's going to be a big focus for you. Whatever Venus is in for you in your natal chart specifically too,
Mhm.
that is kind of how you approach relationships. If you, you know, that's kind of how you approach them.
I see. I see. So if someone wants to work with you, how do you work with people? Do you offer like packages? Is it one-on-one, one-off sessions? Like tell us about your offers.
Okay, so there's a few different offers that I have. One is I do offer the natal chart sessions and the solar return sessions. And the natal chart one is all about understanding yourself. And the reason that I find it to be important is because it does tell you how you best function with your career, with relationships, with making money, with how like how people perceive you and how you function in social groups. So it does cover all of that. It also covers, you know, your daily life and everything. So how your daily life affects you. So that's one offer that I have. I do offer the solar return as well. And like I said, that is more so looking at your next year to see how life is going to affect you. And for that, I always look at the favorable stuff, but I do give you the challenges you'll have too. But I kind of give you some ideas as to how to navigate those because people do need that. And then the other thing that I do like to offer is doing this is something new that I'm actually starting is coaching.
Mhm.
So I want to be able to do this because I think that it will really help people. So what I'm doing is I'm tailoring the coaching to people who want a deep sense of purpose in their life. So it's really for somebody who really wants to have that so that they feel like they are connected with God, the divine universe, whatever it is, and they feel like they are giving the world what they feel like they came into this world to do. So that is really powerful. So what I do for that is I look at their natal chart and kind of give them an understanding of that because if you don't have that, then you don't really have much of anything. And then I look at their solar return after that because I kind of want to see what energies are favored for them.
Mhm.
Um, and then after that, I also do a numerology report. So you're getting everything in this. At all my services that I do already, you're getting them in there.
Yeah.
So I do that as well. And the numerology report, the reason that I do this is because I like to see what your energies are for each month. And what I mean by that is if you are going into a 1 month, for example, next month, we're going to end up looking in this session. I'm going to tell you, hey, I'm seeing you're going into a 1 month, which is all about new opportunities. So if you are wanting to do something new, I recommend that you start with whatever it is that you're interested in that you want to do for the preparing stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it depends on what month it is, and I'll kind of tell the person based on whatever it is. I'll let them know. And then after that, all the remaining sessions, because I do it for a year I'm going to be doing it for a year based on, I want to do it based on the solar return because that is for a year. So I do it based on that, but I also look each week at the planetary aspects of what's going on, planetary transits, so that they know how to deal with that. So I feel like that's important to do because there are so many things in life and everything that I've struggled with that I know other people do. And it's good to have guidance on how to deal with these things. So that's another offering that I really want to do.
Mhm.
Um, and then the one that I thought of recently, yesterday, actually, it just came to me. So I like to mention it too.
Mhm.
Um, is where I have a YouTube channel where I talk about the transits on there already, but I don't tailor them to specific people. I just talk about it generally.
Mhm.
But with this, what I want to do, if people are interested, is put the content on Patreon, but not the videos that I have on my YouTube. It would be basically the new moon and full moon and eclipse, whatever sign it's in. If it's in your whatever house it's in for you, I would put all 12 videos out because there's 12 houses and I would base it on what the sign is, and then I would go 1 through 12 of where the sign is each time that there's a new moon and full moon, and tell you what that means for you.
I see. So
Because people, I feel like it's easier that way, you know?
right. So depending, yeah. So rather than doing just a generalized new moon or full moon reading, you're honing in on each sign and giving them the energy for that new and full moon. Am I understanding?
I would do both. So I would have it generally on YouTube
Gotcha.
because people still need that, but I would give them I would on Patreon, this would be paid, where I would do specifically, okay, so we had a new moon in Taurus, we have that in 2 days. I just did a video on that anyway. And
Yeah.
I would literally put that new moon on Taurus, I would put each house that it's in on Patreon and explain what that means in each video to you, so you know exactly how it's going to affect you each, like, you know, for the new moon coming up, which I
Oh,
think is really important. So that's the new one that I'm thinking of doing.
fantastic. Yeah, I can see, I mean, people who struggle with their purpose, it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I feel like my son's kind of going through that right now. He's 21 and he's decided to go back to school because he knows he doesn't want to flip burgers for the rest
Yeah.
of his life, right? So he's in school and he's like, "Oh, I think I'll do pre-med," because he's just thinking, dollar signs, right? But but he got in and he's like, "Oh my God, I freaking hate chemistry and biology." I'm like, "Yeah, well, that ain't gonna work for you, like, because you're gonna have like how many more years of that?" So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I think yeah, it's interesting to me, and then I just want to speak to this. So yeah, I feel like there's people who for whatever reason they're just blocked from their purpose, and I don't know if it's because their purpose is so unique it's not reflected out there in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of me wonders that, like, I think maybe there's some people that are here to create something new and maybe feel like they don't have a purpose because there isn't you know, a role or a job that's out there, or, a course of study that they can pursue, whatever, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they have something unique. And then alternatively, there's people that come in that really do know their purpose,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe, it just feels like things aren't happening for them. And I could see where in working with you, it could be something energetically going on in your chart or numerologically, that because then if you feel like nothing's happening, then there's the self-doubt, like, my
Mm-hmm.
God, I thought I knew what my purpose is, but dang, nothing's happening. So am I just crazy? Do I just need to, like, you know, you know, throw the baby out with the bathwater and start over?
Yeah.
And so I could see where looking at the energy of it all can really, feels to me like it brings in some riverbanks, so you're not just scattered all over the place, not knowing what to do and overwhelmed and just throwing spaghetti against the wall, right?
Yeah. It's not easy for people. Like, I feel like people kind of just settle for anything that they can get because they need money coming in. And that's fine. You know, honestly, that's okay if you want to do that. And I'm not, that's fine. I respect it because you need it.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would do that too until I had like some kind of purpose that I knew that I wanted.
Yeah.
I feel like I wanted to do that because a little bit about me is I'm a life path 7. So that means that I'm highly spiritual. I'm highly connected to source and the divine. I'm highly connected to all of that, which is why in every single offering that I have, I normally give you what I'm also intuitively getting. And that's not coming from me, that's coming from source. So I usually do that because I want to be able to create a world where people are doing what they feel happy about doing. I don't want people to feel suffering and stuff like that. Like, as a highly sensitive person, because I'm an empath, I identify as that.
Mhm.
If I see people that are suffering, it really hurts me inside
Yeah.
because it really affects me as well. And I usually want to give them a hug. I really do.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of where like I was going with it also. And it's kind of shown in my chart as well. If anybody is into astrology, I have my I have my 10th house, which is my career and how people view me. I have it in Aquarius. So I'm supposed to be very unconventional. I'm supposed to be very forward thinking. I'm supposed to break the mold. That's kind of me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I
Beautiful.
also got, thank you. I also connect very well though. Like I can make an income and all of that as well. But like, I have I feel like I'm supposed to really help bring in a new type of world for people that are different and stuff like that. And I feel like with Aquarius, I know someone who's an Aquarius. They're very forward thinking.
Mhm.
They're very like, how do I make this change? Like, how do I help this person, but how do I do it in a different way? I love people who are like that. Don't get me wrong. I like a lot of people, but I love people who are like that because they think so differently. And it's always usually, if you have Aquarius in your chart, it's always about the greater good. I always love
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. If we were all in alignment with our true purpose, connected to source, doing what lights us up, doing what gives us juice, yeah, life would look very different here on the planet. And and I think that we're moving more and more in that direction as more and more people wake up to like realizing they've been asleep at the wheel, and suddenly, like, usually it's something that shakes us, right? Like in your case, you had all these health issues that made you go like, wait a minute, okay, I
Hmm.
am way off track. Me,
Yes.
me too, me too. I mean, I was hell bent on like, oh, I'm gonna live my life in an ashram. I'm gonna be, the monk, whatever. And boy, my health was like, it was like, no, you're not. That is not what you're here to do. Is to go sit in a cave and meditate. Like you need to be out in the world and yeah, following your bliss and whatever. And it's definitely never a smooth straight line, but
No.
what I find really inspiring in connecting with people like you and like doing these interviews is just, to me, it's like, oh, it's another one. If we live in this crystalline energy field, this Indra's net, every time we connect with one another and we shine our light, even it's just this little tiny space between you and I, even if it's just a handful of people that see this video, I have a firm belief that that little spark of light, it lights up the whole net on some level. Excuse me, I gotta get some water.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It does help people. Um, that's why I really want to, like I mentioned before, when I do these types of offerings, I always feel like there's something in there that I give somebody else based on what I went through myself. So
Mhm.
it's not, so it's looking at the past to see what I went through, but it's also being like, okay, so what lessons did I learn from that? And how can I help this person out of a very dark place to
Yeah.
get them into a better place and to show them that life can get better too. And that's why I wanted to do the coaching as well, because all transits are um, you know, from someone that I know, a good acquaintance of mine, Andrea, she mentioned all transits are is ups and downs of life, and I agree. Transits
Mhm.
are all ups and downs of life. So if I can help someone navigate through ups and downs of life, then and basically like still be able to help them with having a deep sense of purpose, because I'm technically doing that if I tell them what their natal chart is and they follow that, like, and they understand it, then I would feel great because they are feeling good about themselves and they know who they are and they know how to best help others. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So where can people find you, Julia?
so I do have a YouTube channel, and it's called Julia Tailoring, but my handle is at Astrologer 411. So I do have that. And then I also do have a Facebook group as well, and I can give you the link to it, probably like when you post this. So I can do that too.
Exactly. That'd be great. Post it in the comments, post all the links. And Yeah, this has been super fun and great, and I just love your energy, Julia. It's just so clear, no nonsense, just like laying it out for people. Um, yeah, thank you for your authenticity and your willingness to show up and yeah, to share this powerful information and what you do with others.
Thank you. And I appreciate you taking time as well to do it. That's very, very appreciated. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, everyone. So if you're watching the replay, let us know. If you have questions for Julia, put them in the chat. And we'll see you next time.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.